Well, it's good to see everybody here. This is, a really sizable crowd, and I think it's a good sign to see this kind of turnout in these mining conferences. So thank you everybody for coming, and thank you Elaine and team for having me. And really excited to be presenting here today. And I'll be talking about Vizsla Silver, of course. And Vizsla is a high-grade silver and gold discovery that we're actively advancing. We're advancing the PANUCO district in Mexico. And Vizsla is a listed company on the New York Stock Exchange and the TSXV. I actually started the company back in 2017 as a private company, took it through an IPO in 2018. And in 2019, I was introduced to this district. I spent about a year in Sinaloa, Mexico, working on acquiring each half of this district. And so we've been thrilled with the outcome here. It's been thrilling to continually make discoveries here. But as of last week, one of the most exciting things have happened to the project and the company, and that's that we've come up with an updated resource that is now the world's largest high-grade undeveloped silver resource, and it continues to grow. So it's a thrilling time here to be a shareholder and be involved in Vizsla Silver. And I should say, we don't have it in the presentation because it happened on Friday night, but we've completed a financing. We will complete a financing next week or the week after, which will see the cash position in the company increase significantly and remove the need for us to go to the market in the coming year and a half or more. So the only way to buy Vizsla shares right now is on the market, and of course that opens tomorrow morning. The ticker is VZLA. Now, I probably already have made forward-looking statements. I'm going to continue to make forward-looking statements, and I do think the best is yet to come for Vizsla, and of course that is a forward-looking statement. Vizsla's vision for growth. So Vizsla's vision is to become one of the world's largest single asset silver producers through discovery, development, and production at the 100% owned PANUCO Precious Metals District in Mexico. Silver is very important, not only for its monetary and investment thesis, which is increasingly important in this environment that we find ourselves in right now, but the rising demand that we see from technology applications, from EVs, from renewable energy, basically from this modern society that we're creating here, moving towards a zero carbon environment and society, is putting a huge amount of pressure on increasing the demand side. And so we've seen now consecutive deficit years. We're expecting a 16% deficit in 2023. And I think this is going to drive silver to even higher levels than we've seen before. But even at these prices, silver is a fantastic commodity to be exploring for and to find, because it's indispensable for the future that we're looking towards here. So after this financing closes in the coming weeks, we're going to have just around 200 million shares outstanding. Our market cap is just over 300 million Canadian. We've traded actually in a range, an all-time high of about $3.50. When we made the first discovery, we raised money from Eric Sprott and a couple of other very strong shareholders at about $1.87 per share. Today, you can buy the 200 million plus ounces that we've discovered, the project that we own 100% now. The entry price at these levels is less than Eric Sprott's first investment in the company. So it's an excellent time to be buying the stock. Insiders have been buying the stock. We bought, as a group, over $5 million worth of stock in the last 24 months, and we continue to buy. We're well covered by the analyst community. So Phil Kerr at PI, Michael Gray. We'd like to give a shout out to Gentis Capital, who's helped put this Prismo deal together as well. And Michael Gray's an excellent analyst, and if you come across his research on Vizsla, it's well worth reading. Mike Niehauser at Roth, Craig at Raymond James, Heiko at H.C. Wainwright, and Stephen at Stifel all cover. The consensus buy target on the share price is well over 100% from here. So we're in a group here that thinks the share price is going to rise. I talked about insider buying, but myself, I was the first shareholder of the company. My partner and chairman, Craig Perry, bought $5 million worth of stock at $2.50 in the last financing. It's well owned by insiders, it's well owned by institutions, and it's well owned by the rest of the group here as well. And the reason that we are so excited and that we own so much stock in this and want to buy more and will buy more is because this is a precious metals district. This isn't a project that we optioned out of another silver company or prospect generator or something like this. This came through hard-fought negotiating and years and probably 25 flights back and forth from Vancouver to Mexico to get this, this district consolidated. And we brought two halves together for the first time in modern history. And the reason that we did that was because we knew that the prize was huge. This reminded us of some of the major silver districts in the world. And we knew from the first time we stepped foot on the project that we had to have this consolidated district. And so by doing that, we unlocked a huge amount of value, and we're the first company to have this land package since the conquistadors, since it was discovered 450 years ago, to systematically explore. And it didn't take very long, rather it took about 4 months after we started exploring here to make our first major discovery, and that was Napoleon in the, maybe I don't have a pointer, in the west part of the district map here. After that, we discovered COPALA. COPALA is a monster in the making. It's one of the most important precious metals discovery outside of Mexico, anywhere in the world in the last 10 years, and it's going to continue to grow. I'm convinced we're going to find many more COPALAs in here, and I'm convinced this is a billion-ounce district, very similar to San Dimas up the road. That's the project that built Goldcorp. It's an important project in First Majestic. That's the tenor of what we have here. The difference between San Dimas and PANUCO is the fact that PANUCO has never been explored systematically. It's relatively virgin. It's seen continual small-scale mining for centuries, but it's never had a modern lens put to it, and it's never been explored like we're exploring it. Now, the other interesting thing, and this is what sets PANUCO apart from pretty much any project I've ever seen, is that if the whole room wanted to go right now to the project, we can charter a plane from Vancouver or jump on the WestJet flight to Mazatlan directly. In about 4 or 5 hours, we'd be at the Mazatlan airport. We'd all get in a van and turn right and go up one of the two highways here, and we'd be right on Napoleon and COPALA in 45 minutes. These highways crisscross the property, high tension power crisscrosses the property. This is the best infrastructure project I've ever seen. And we're continuing to unlock value here through our drill rigs. So we've had incredible drill program. It was the world's largest silver drill program last year when we had 12 rigs. Right now we have 7 because we found COPALA and we're systematically drilling that out. But 7 rigs is a big program, and it's going to drive a lot of news flow coming up this year. This is a good way to visualize the scale of the project. If you think about the island of Manhattan, that's the length of the project. It's actually deeper or wider than Manhattan. But if you think about trying to walk from the New York Stock Exchange to Harlem, that takes a long time, and that's what we're looking at here. And really what we're focused on is the western portion of this district. And I should say, just going back to this, our resource that I'm going to talk about now represents less than 10% of the known vein strike on the property. So we barely scratched the surface here. So what we're looking at here is our resource table. All told, in silver equivalent ounces, we have over 219 million silver equivalent ounces in both indicated and inferred. In indicated, we have 105 million ounces. In inferred, we have 114 million ounces. And these grades are spectacular. In the indicated category, it's 437 grams. In the inferred category, it's 491 grams. So as Michael Gray actually mentioned in his research report recently, this is one of 3 undeveloped silver assets that have a grade over 300 grams and that are over 80 million ounces. But we're well over 80 million ounces, and we're well over 300 grams here. And as we get closer to production, the cutoff grade tends to go up. And what you'll see here on this side of the chart is, the metal loss is limited when your cutoff goes up, but the grades shoot up significantly and very close to 600 grams per ton in both categories on average. That is incredible. The average grade of a mine in Mexico is about 200, 250 grams. This is multiples of that. Our resource is 48% in indicated. The rest is in inferred. 93% of these resources are in precious metals. And this is a stat that I think is very important here. Our total all-in exploration cost, what it costs for us to find an ounce of silver, is 19 cents an ounce. Since our last resource, which was our first resource in March, it's actually been 15 cents. So we're getting more efficient finding ounces, and we're finding ounces at industry-leading price levels here. Now, the 3 things that you'd probably want to remember, the 3 takeaways here, is size, grade, and scale. We have the size of our resource, if we stopped drilling and told all the drillers to go home, is enormous. If we just left it here, it'd be one of the largest, it is the largest undeveloped high-grade silver deposits or resources in the world. But we have the grade that really sets us apart, and we can talk about this here in this graph. But then if you think about the size of the district and what we've explored so far, you just think about how much upside we have here. But you can see, in the explorer developer category here, we're head and shoulders above every other, resource there in terms of grade. But when we look at our aspiration here of becoming one of the world's largest single asset silver producers, you see, Juanicipio, which there's obviously a connection to Prismo through Peter McGaw, and actually our Vice President of Exploration, Jesus, and Peter made that discovery together all those years ago. You can see at the 250 gram cutoff right here, the grade is really comparable to Juanicipio. And of course, that's a multi-billion-dollar company. They own 44% of their asset. We own 100% of ours. And if you look at Las Chispas, that's another billion-dollar company. Our size, our resource size is, it's far larger than Las Chispas, and the grade is really, at least in the inferred category, very comparable. They have some very high-grade veins, but so do we, and we'll talk about this here shortly. So I do think that we're going to be moving, to the left-hand side of this chart. And the reason that we've had this success and what's driving the increase in grade over the resources is the COPALA structure. The COPALA structure is a monster in the making. This is really an important takeaway as well. As I mentioned, average grades and thicknesses in Mexico, 200 grams and over 2 meters, let's say. That's pretty nice if you have that. This is a 10-meter thick structure on average that stretches over a kilometer. It's open in each direction, and it's 400 meters down dip. We haven't tested the dip extents yet, so it's completely open. It's 10 meters thick on average, which is just insane, and the average grade is very high here at over half a kilo. You just don't see this ever really in precious metals mines in Mexico. And if that wasn't good enough, we also have Cristiano, which is adjacent and basically runs through COPALA. And this is, our very high-grade subvertical vein that likely is a potential early high-grade feed source for the PANUCO district and for our development. And the grades here are much higher, 614 in the indicated, 908 in the inferred. This high-grade mineralization is going to make a big difference when you start planning the economics of building this mine. And as Elaine mentioned, we are the district here, and this as I said, this was, a hard-fought, hard negotiated, and actually, when we started, everyone thought we were crazy because we had a $43 million option payment to the groups that own this district, and we had a $15 million market cap company, and people couldn't really do the math, but we were able to raise some money and show the discovery potential and the upside here, and that's what made the difference. But fast forward 3 years, and we have 100 kilometers of veins that run through the property. We've only tested 30 known targets that we have, 30% of the known targets that we have, and there's just much more for us to see here. But really what we have is a center of mass in the west here. This area here. This is likely the the development area for us. That's where 95% of our resources are. But I expect we'll see multiple centers of mass throughout this district where we're going to continue to find other large amounts of mineralization and ideally veins similar to COPALA. This is if we're looking north through the vein set. You have COPALA on the right, Tajitos, and then basically an untested gap zone over a 2-kilometer stretch, and then you have Napoleon and our other veins as well. Now, that's a perfect place for a mill site, so we are doing some condemnation drilling there, and oftentimes when you do condemnation drilling, you might actually find something. So we're excited about testing the untested zone. We have plans also to do fence drilling in this area as well, but you can see that there's a sequence of veins here, and likely we're going to find far more as we get underground and continue to drill. But this is a great example of why this is our center of mass. Now, all of this was great, but what does it really mean, and what does it mean to the share price and the market cap? But the best way to explain this is through enterprise value per ounce, and the way that we look at our cross section of comparables here is again, if let's just pretend that we didn't find another ounce again. We're already massively undervalued compared to some of our peers and certainly our aspirations. Our direct comparables traded at about $5 an ounce EV. They've been as high as $10 an ounce in the last couple of years. Right now we're trading at less than around $1 per ounce. So we're 20% of the value of our, our aspirational peers here to the right hand of the chart. And in the next few years, we're going to be getting there. But I suspect that, the silver price is going to draw this EV per ounce up and back to that level of around $10. So, as we find more, but even as we just de-risk what we have, there's a built-in re-rating that I believe is going to happen. You can see on the bottom chart, in terms of market cap at 220 US, we can very simply move to the right of this chart here. And I think eventually we're going to be at the far right hand of this chart in the multi-billion dollar market cap area. So over the last couple of years here, what we've done, what we've achieved is that we've delineated a large high-grade resource centered on the western portion of this district. We've done metallurgical testing with high precious metals recovery for Napoleon and Tajitos. We've acquired 100% of the ownership of the district, so we solved that $43 million problem. And when I went to give a check to the vendors, they said, "Oh, hold on, we want shares." I was wanting them to take shares for a long time, but they decided to do that when we were closing. So we actually saved money on that, and they became shareholders, which is excellent because now the historic owners of the project are aligned with us through shares, and they're actually very invested in what we're doing. So we have a great relationship with the former operators of this project and the communities here. And we've actually drilled over 250,000 meters, which is a huge amount for any company. And that's really due to the strength of our team there. I mentioned Jesus Velador, but we have Martin Dupuy as COO. The team that we have on the ground, Carlos Beltran is credited with with many of these discoveries here. The team is incredible. To handle that much core in 3 years is really impressive, and that's what we've completed. But we have 7 rigs turning right now, and so 30,000 meters drilled since the last resource. So there's more to come here, and we're not slowing down. So in progress, we're going to continue to drill. We have ongoing exploration, further metallurgical testing on COPALA. We've done initial geotech, hydrological, baseline environmental work. All of this is going to feed into the next steps, which is to deliver an updated project resource in the second half of 2023. And eventually, I would think, the earliest we might see it would be the end of this year. It would be a PEA. And a PEA would kick off the next steps for us to move rapidly towards production. So why Vizsla Silver? We have multiple near-term catalysts, the 90,000 meters of drilling this year, the updated resource in the second half of 2023. As I mentioned, the discovery potential here is enormous. And actually, what I did kind of skip over something here I was going to talk about, of course, was, we made the investment in Prismo as part of continuing this consolidation process in the district. And we've added, maybe 1,000 hectares of further claims, since we got there. But really, what we were attracted to in Prismo, and Prismo's into the eastern area of this district, which is probably the least developed that we have right now, but one of the more prospective areas that we know about. Of course, we're focused in the west. But what drew us to Prismo, of course, is that they did make a bona fide discovery there. And a vein runs off of our property onto theirs and then back onto ours. And when they drilled that off, we obviously paid attention to that, and we expect that to be probably a year or two of mine life in the future, if not more. I mean, it could very well be more. Additionally, it was exciting to us to gain exposure to the very strong technical minds and the business minds at Prismo, and exposure through our shares that we have now, and we're really happy to be shareholders of Prismo. But I also really enjoy as Vizsla having upside in Pavitos and Hot Brecha. These are excellent projects that were brought by a very strong technical mind. So as part of our strategy with the Prismo ground, the Palos Verdes property, it really fits into the idea that we are the dominant player here in this district. We are going to take this to production, and we want as much mine life as we can have here. So that was really the justification for that. And of course, as we finish and continue in the west here and kind of finish our plans in the west, we'll continue to delineate more resources in the east. And we have done some drilling in the east, and we find it to be a very prospective and very exciting area. And just to close on this slide here, again, the discovery potential is enormous here. Again, 30% of these targets we've tested. We're finding new targets all the time. We have 6 geologists in the field at any given time, mapping, sampling, doing that ground-up exploration that has led to these early discoveries that we've had as well. And we have an expedited pathway to production. One thing I didn't mention is when we did the project deal, or the property deal, we had a mill that actually came with that deal. Now it's a 500 ton per day dilapidated kind of Mexican classic mill there. It's not going to be the solution for our production plans moving forward here. But due to all the roads and the high tension power and the fact that this is a disturbed mining area already, there's 30 kilometers of underground mines. The communities love mining. They're all miners. This is the type of expedited pathway to production that can really fast track this project. And we do have 30-year, I mentioned the strength of our team. One of the biggest strengths that we have is a fellow by the name of Antonio Esparza. And Antonio is, a consummate professional, probably the best community person I've ever seen. And he's been able to secure 30-year, and the team has been able to secure 30-year production agreements with all the local Ejido and everybody that's influenced by our operations there. So it's not typical for a company of our time here that we've spent in the district to achieve this so quickly, but our team has really brought that to fruition very quickly. And now we'll have over $60 million in the bank after this financing closes that we announced on Friday. That's going to bring us all the way through this year into next year through some major milestones that includes the updated resource and likely initial scoping studies. So, we're fully financed here, and really the best way, I think this is a must-own silver story, and the only way you can own it now is to buy a market with this financing closing. So, that in summary, that's our 30,000-foot view of the company. And thanks you, everybody, again. Thank you for your time.